Thank you, Elizabeth. So I guess I actually should have done some introductions. Elizabeth Hale, who is sort of, the wizard behind the green curtain, is actually the executive director of the Bethesda Metro Area Village, which she has been leading for quite some time, and it is a thriving village. She's also on the WAVE board and is the lead for our mentoring program. So she's someone who's been really very, very valuable in all aspects of this. And I wanted to also introduce Kim Masari, who is with us. She just joined WAVE as its operations manager, so we're delighted to have her here. And we have other WAVE board members who are joining us, and I hope they will speak up as we go through this. And I know Layla at least will be introduced when it's her time to talk. So thank you, everybody, very much. So we created this program to help villages grow and thrive. And it's timely because of the grant announcement that Chelsea just put out a couple of weeks ago, which is to support villages. And you're going to be hearing a lot about the resources that are available and for whatever state you're in. There's going to be some great examples of how villages collaborate with other villages, with government agencies, with other nonprofits. And we hope that you'll leave this program with at least one really good idea for what you can do next. Okay, I do want to also say that the slides are going to be on our website along with the video recording. So you'll be able to access that later, and they'll be on wavevillages.org, and we'll send around the link to that later. Next slide, please. So we do have a full agenda. After you hear about the resources from Maryland and from WAVE, then we'll jump into these examples of specific, creative and helpful collaborations. Those will be followed by breakouts. And those of you who are most interested in collaboration with other villages and nonprofits can go to the first one. And we'll focus on AAAs in the second one. And we'll give you more details about how to join those later. And I do want to say right now that we will not be reconvening after the breakouts. So I'll be sort of collectively saying goodbye to you at the end of the panel, and then we'll go into our breakouts. So first, I am going to introduce Chelsea Wheeler, who is the manager of the Supportive Communities program in the Maryland Department on Aging, and her office issued the recent RFP. And I can say that Chelsea is absolutely passionate about villages, and we're very pleased to have the support of Chelsea and her whole agency. So Chelsea, go ahead.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for having me, Mary Jo and Elizabeth, and everyone that's representing every village across the jurisdiction. I am excited to be in this position. As Mary Jo mentioned, I am very passionate about this because it's getting back to the heart of community. And without community, we cannot thrive as a race, as individuals, as aging in Maryland. So, and aging starts at birth. It does not discriminate. So thank you, everyone, for having me here. So yes, we just launched a new RFP. I think that was last Friday, if I'm not mistaken, for the Aging in Place grant, which is for $100,000 total cap. And then with that, we're definitely looking for villages to apply. There are preferences, and I'm really, really passionate about those preferences because we want to be very inclusive with that. And if you have not received that RFP, I know that I sent that out to my contact list. Please say something in the chat with your email address, your name, and I will make sure I grab that and send it to you. But primarily the types of projects that we're looking for are to preserve familiarity and independence in the community, provide mental stimulation and engagement, reduce emotional stress, and provide opportunities to live in a thriving, supported community. And on this RFP, it does say 20% is going to go to villages. 20% is not a lot. So I'm really looking for villages to disseminate those funds to 100% to villages. If you are in partnership with the AAA, that is part of the preferences as well. So definitely do that. Get in contact with your AAA. If you have a municipality that you're in partnership with, that is a-okay as well. But I'm really looking for you guys to be as creative as you possibly can with your projects. And I am not a stickler on certain grammar and things of that nature, if you want to put it that way, because I know that capacity may not be as great. And so if you feel like, I don't know if I should do this or not, do it. Please do it. I'm looking for that. So that is one of the RFPs that has just been presented recently. Another one that is coming down the chute, hopefully by Friday, is with the health and wellness program with the department. And with that one, it's actually directed to senior citizen activity centers. It's the operating fund grant. And so with that one, that is a total cap, I believe, of 750,000. So my suggestion to you guys is reach out to your local AAA and partner with them, because the funding is going to go to them. They will be the ones applying. So if you have a senior center in your jurisdiction and you have some projects that will that speaks to social isolation, any type of engagement, definitely partner with them and, try to apply for that funding, because it is definitely there, and they are really big on trying to do multi-sector planning, and that's where you're going to fall in with those preferences. There's going to be a preference that talks about, I'm going to get the exact wording, incorporate volunteers in the planning and delivery of programs and services, serve individuals who belong to historically underserved communities such as Black, Latino, Indigenous, and Native American persons, Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders, and other persons of color, members of religious minority, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer, LGBTQ plus persons, persons with disabilities, persons who live in rural areas, and persons otherwise adversely affected by persistent poverty and inequality. And then the last bullet for that one would be propose multi-sector and multi-generational collaboration. So if you fit within those preferences, definitely reach out and you tell your executive directors at the AAAs, hey, we are in line with hitting these main priorities. And we know that the department is giving out funding. We're proposing these projects that are going to hit these different priority areas. So that is my suggestion to you guys. And there's always, my door is always open. My phone is always open. My email is always open. So please email me. And I try to be as responsive as I possibly can. So thank you.
Chelsea, I have a quick question. I'll bet a lot of people in villages don't know what a AAA is. I hate to say it. And they certainly, and even if they do, they might not know how to contact theirs, how to even locate who is their AAA. So do you have any guidance, or could you put something into the chat about how they could do that?
Sure can. I sure can. So a AAA is an area agency on aging. Every jurisdiction has one. To get that information, you can go to the Maryland Department of Aging website. In the search bar, you can actually put in AAA, AAA, and the contact list for every jurisdiction is going to populate. So, and I can actually, do I have access to?
I have actually, Chelsea, I took that table, if that's what it was, with everybody's name in it, and I tracked down their email addresses. And if people would like me to share that, I will send that out to people who are on this call. And I'm happy to share that with you, because I have to confess that until I got into WAVE, I didn't know who they were. And I want to emphasize again then how timely this is, because in 2 weeks' time, we're going to have sort of the reverse of this program presented to the AAAs to tell them why you all are so wonderful and give them examples of successful collaborations and how they can work with you all. So that'll be on May 15th. I'll mention that again in the future, but we're hoping that that will make it easier for that handshake, to happen. Any other questions for Chelsea?
And I did want to mention, I am currently, so in that last listening session that Elizabeth and Mary Jo hosted for us, what I did hear is that you wanted MDOA to market villages out, to legitimize you guys. So I'm actually in the process right now of posting every last link to every last village that I have access to the MDOA website. So I'm working on that currently. That way, constituents, members of the community can come to the MDOA website if they're looking for you guys. As long as your information is up to date, you'll be able to click on to your specific village, separated by jurisdiction. So definitely make sure you are updating your contact information, your websites, all of that. With Mary Jo, I guess, Mary Jo, you have that form on the WAVE website.
Right, but we're hoping that, I'm going to talk in a minute. We hope you'll all join WAVE. I'll tell you why. It's virtually free and actually free. And once we can get you into our database, we'll have one comprehensive database of everybody. And we're going to share that with Chelsea because we certainly have it already for anyone who is in WAVE. And we have a lot of contact information for villages that are not members. Because they're included in everything we do. So there was a request in the chat, Chelsea, to once more give what does AAA stand for? Somebody may have come in late.
Area Agencies on Aging. I also put in the link for every area agency on aging and their phone number and who the director is. So if you click on that link, you're going to get a PDF of every last AAA in Maryland.
Excellent. Excellent. Any other questions for Chelsea? Okay, well, now I'm going to tell you what WAVE has to offer you. And a lot of you know about this, but next slide, please, Elizabeth. Okay, so I'll try to do this a little bit briefly so we can really focus on the collaboration. So who are we? For those of you who don't know, why, we are the largest regional village in the nation. We've been around 25 years, and we encompass villages as far away as Shepherdstown, West Virginia now, and Baltimore, and Charlottesville, and Annapolis. Although we did start as really the metropolitan region, but we've expanded, and we welcome all of these participants. Next slide, please. We're really happy to have this grant from the Maryland Department of Aging, from Chelsea specifically. Thank you, Chelsea. And it is for us to do sort of what we're doing today, to do a whole variety of things to help villages thrive and grow, whether they're in the startup phase or established or very mature. Believe me, you who are in the startup phase, your problems don't go away by the time you've been around for 10 years and you look successful. It's just, some of them we cycle through all the time. There are certain evergreen issues that everybody has to face. So take heart from that. So I do want to mention a couple things there. Yeah, we are doing something that we haven't done before, which is with our talented Kim Masseri's help. We are in the process of designing some just quick 2-page, highly visual, beautifully laid out flyers, one for established villages and one for startup villages that they can use, that you can use if you're in either one of those categories. There's a space for your own logo and your own information. And of course, you can swap out the photos that we have and put in photos from your own group. But we're going to make those available later. So that's coming soon. If you just go back a minute. Prior slide, Elizabeth, prior slide. No, you keep going forward. How about the one beforehand?
Give me a second, okay? Just give me a
Okay.
second.
All right, well, that's okay. I tell you what, I will speak through it and then you can go back to the what do we do? I was just going to say that this program and the program that I already mentioned about for counties, for them to learn about you. There's also going to be a program on grant writing. And when we have that grant writing workshop, why Chelsea suggested and our grant workshop leader enthusiastically agreed that it would make that very timely and effective to use that RFP as an example for people who have not had any grant writing experiences. I'm sure that if any of you on this call are already thinking about or have already started your proposals to respond to that, why you still might benefit from joining this grant writing workshop. And you could raise your own questions about, gee, what's the best way to handle that? Okay, thank you, Elizabeth. We can go on to the next one. Okay, so this is just an example of the types of plenary programs that we give. And these are all on our website at the Archive of Wave Events, where this program will live. Next slide. And we call these mutual support programs. They are not didactic, talking at you types of sessions. They really are villages, we call it, learning and sharing and growing together. And these are just examples of some of the sessions that we've had just recently. And as I mentioned just a minute ago, many of these are evergreen issues. And we know that that many villages at any stage might be working on them. So we have more coming, but this gives you a sense of the breadth of them. And we welcome suggestions from villages who say, I have this real problem and I would really love to have a session where we can all get together and we can talk about how we've handled different aspects of this. That was one of the sources of one how we that we did on recruiting volunteers, which is evergreen. Next one. Next slide, please. So we have right on our homepage, you'll see a list of events, and you can also access it in the calendar view. Well, we've had 76 events so far this year that are posted by villages. Member villages can put up any programs that are free and open to the public via Zoom. And in fact, if people are comfortable and they are ever opening them up in person, it is the village's prerogative, if they wish, to also invite other people. But certainly the Zoom programs have been very popular. It really is an abundance of riches. Next one, please. And this is an important one for you newcomers. Elizabeth is head of our mentoring program, and we really want to help our members wherever that they're at. And this is, some of the areas that we know people need help. But if we don't have the expertise to help you with a particular question that you have, WAVE has an agreement with the National V2V Village to Village Network, where we just refer you to one of their mentors who may have that expertise, and vice versa. If someone applies to them, but it's a person coming from our region, then they send them back to us. So you can go and sign up, and we encourage you to sign up for this. And what we ask is that you give very precise problems that you'd like to solve, because that helps us decide who best to assign to you. And also, it's more useful for you than just saying, I'm starting up, what do I do now? That's not what the one-to-one mentoring is for. So think of what your real pain points are, and we'll try and help you with them. The next one, please. So being a mentor is really rewarding. These are quotes from people who have been helped. And I encourage any of you who have been around, for a little while, and that you have worked your way through certain issues. Please volunteer to be a mentor. It's at that same page. And again, these slides will be on our website. You can go in and you can sign up to be a mentor. We need you. We need you as much as we need the people who need mentoring. Next one, please. So here's how we can give you money. We have 2 award programs that really are a chance to shine the spotlight on outstanding examples of village programs or services. And in addition to money, villages get media attention. They get an icon for their website and a chance to share their program with the wider wave audience through some of our programs. And you'll note that the Founders Award is going to be, winners are going to be announced in 2 weeks on May 15th. And I will say that we have some really lovely applicants there. And then our second program will have its second year opening in September. And that's the one that focuses particularly on programs that address end-of-life issues. So now these are only open to WAVE members, but I hope that you'll consider applying both for the one that's coming and next year's Founders Award. Next slide, please. And in fact, so here we are. Our membership fee is just $35. We have subsidies. There is no reason for anybody on this call who is not a WAVE member not to go to join and sign up for this. You put in your information first before you're asked to pay. So go ahead and do it. And if you'd like one of our subsidies, we have them there. They're there to help you. And I think that this would be very valuable for you. And then you'd get your name and your village information more easily handed over to Chelsea in a standardized form. Okay, next slide, please. And we have subsidies for other memberships. We can pay a certain number of memberships for the National Village to Village Network, which we collaborate closely. We're not at all in competition. And they've been around longer, and they have a really rich bench of material and of resources for you. It's an extremely valuable organization for all villages to belong to. And again, we can subsidize you for that. So you can email me about that. Also, Maryland Nonprofits, and I know Chelsea works with them, they consult and support on starting and managing nonprofits, including the 501c3 application. So again, those of you who are really at the very beginning or in the early stages, we can get you a membership in Maryland Nonprofits for you to be able to access that help. Okay, almost the next slide. Yeah, mark your calendars. On the 15th is our next plenary session. And what you would do to register there is you would go to our website, wavevillages.org. And right on the front page, you'll see a list of events. And you scroll down until you hit May 15th. And you click on it to register. And I emphasize, you do not need to log in to register. It'll say log in. Don't ignore it, just register. And then you'll get reminders and the Zoom information for that. Okay, the last slide. Okay, so I have to find my version of it. So again, this is how you can get information about us, and we look forward to hearing from you. Now, I'm going to introduce the first panel, but let me say again that, after the panels, we will go into the breakouts, and we will disperse after that. So let me first ask, does anyone have any questions for me about WAVE or about the memberships or the subsidies? Okay, I'm glad I was so clear. All right, so we're going to have the first panel now, and the first panel is actually just one person, Margie Ullner-Ott. She's the secretary of a brand new and exciting arrangement of villages called the Montgomery County Villages Consortium. She was a longstanding and is still a longstanding member of the Little Falls Village, and she brought extensive management consulting to it. And I know that she's been very instrumental in helping this cluster of villages get off the ground. And she'll tell us a little bit about that and other aspects of collaborating, village to village.
Great, thanks, Mary Jo. And hi, everybody. I'm Margie Ullner-Ott. I've been involved with Little Falls Village probably for about 8 years now. because we're going on our 11th year, and I'm pretty sure they had been operating for about 3 when I joined. I joined them because I had become unemployed, and I had worked with the then executive director, Todd Smith, in scouting, which his sons and my sons were involved with. And I said, do you need somebody to help you write grants? And he's like, would you? And I got involved from that point on, looking at how they were handling risk management. They needed to tighten some things up along those lines, and started then with how they were training volunteers. And I had come from a nonprofit that used volunteers extensively. I worked for a student exchange program. And so I managed 2,000 volunteers around the country that were finding host families for and supporting international exchange students in host homes and host communities. So it was a similar kind of volunteer to what we're looking for, which is a volunteer that has a lot of access to a vulnerable person. So the kind of training and background checking that you want to do on those people is more in depth than, you know, volunteers who are going to go pull weeds in the park. So one of the things I did first in collaboration was went to a Chevy Chase at Home volunteer training program. So I went to their in-person training that they were conducting and borrowed a lot of it, and then delivered it to the Little Falls Village volunteer group. And about the same time, Friendship Heights Neighbors Network had just formed, and they're right next to us in terms of boundary, in the Bethesda Chevy Chase area of Montgomery County. And so they asked if they could come to our volunteer training so that they could see how to train their volunteers. I did a similar thing with a volunteer handbook, because I think they had a small member and volunteer handbook, but again, you want to make sure that your policies and procedures are very clear. That's also a major risk management feature of working with a vulnerable population. And I basically looked on the internet for examples and borrowed examples from villages around the country to get what I thought was the best for what the needs of Little Falls Village was. And then I'm not sure who or how we shared it with people, but we were always willing to share those kinds of things with others. I'm not sure, Elizabeth, if you're gonna put up my slides. I don't see them.
Are you able to pull them up for on your own and screen share them on your end?
Sure.
Okay, great. I made you a co-host, so you should be able to.
I just have to find where I stopped them. Can people see my screen?
Mhm.
Village to village collaborations?
Yes.
We
Okay, great.
can. It's in, it's not, there we go.
There we
Now-
go. So volunteer training was the first collaboration. And as we got to know each other as board member to board member, Connie Rao, who's the president of and founder of Friendship Heights Neighbors Network, we both had backgrounds in nonprofit management, and both organizations were having a hard time coming up with the resources to staff our needs adequately. And so we said we should look at trying to share a staff person with both organizations, and let's write a grant to the county for that. So for about, I think, 5 years now, we've had a shared grant with the county for $30,000. We split it, and that was to supplement our staffing. And when we initially worked on it, we basically shared a staff person who did similar tasks for both of our organizations. And that then created an environment where we knew what kinds of programs each other's members and volunteers liked and what we were scheduling in each village. And we started to open select programs to each other's members and volunteers. And then during and after COVID, since so many events are on Zoom, we share a lot of our events now on a regular basis. I know a lot of villages will invite other villages to some certain specific events, but we share a lot of events with Friendship Heights. And that means that we don't have to expend as much effort building a full calendar of events for our members and volunteers. That, basically it's a many hands make light work. Also, the different villages have access to different kinds of people in terms of, who might actually be members, who might be volunteers, who might be neighbors, who have some kind of programming that's interesting for the members and volunteers, either book authors, former ambassadors talking about the country they served in. So programs like that. We've also cooperated with each other with some suburban hospital programming that talks about end of life issues. They had some funding for that. So again, it was another cooperative grant that we participated with them on. Other things we've collaborated with were board training. We had someone in our neighborhood who had been with BoardSource and retired and offered to give a boardsmanship training for us. And we invited the Friendship Heights Neighbors Network board. So both boards did that training together. And then we've had some other interboard committees work together. There was some early work looking at insurance and whether villages could band together for insurance. We can't, well, we can, but we can't. Basically, every 501c3 entity on its own has to have its own insurance coverage. Looking at the training overall, we were looking at creating a kind of a standard set of operating procedures for training, for kind of the documents that we were using in terms of agreements with volunteers, agreements with members. We had a pro bono attorney working with us that reviewed the documents that we collaborated on putting together. So some board volunteers worked on committees from each organization. We also had an intern working with us on that as well. So brought in some other kind of best practices from other villages in other areas. And a lot of this, during all of these collaborations, we had started seeing across the country a model of management and kind of shared resource management amongst villages, which is a hub and spoke model. So moving administrative tasks to a hub and then leaving the individual villages to actually do service delivery and local, hyper local programming, in-person local programming. And that then led to Montgomery County Villages Consortium, which just got its 501c3. It took about 9 months, and we worked with Maryland Nonprofits, which Mary Jo just mentioned as a resource, to get that done. The consortium now can help villages start and be able to fundraise and to be able to operate without a 501c3 if they become a member of the consortium. We're not quite at that operating stage yet. We will be, I'd say, in 3 to 6 months. Be able to foster the development of villages without their having to go through a lot of that official pain. And that's all I had. Does anybody have any questions?
I have a quick question while other people are thinking about it. You have jointly put together such a rich array of important documents and training materials. I guess on behalf of everybody on the call, would you be willing to share samples of some of
Oh,
those?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay, I think that would be wonderful. Maybe people could put in the chat the ones that they're particularly interested in getting, and we can, sort that out later. But I know how important it is. Do people have other people have any questions?
Sure. Margie, thank you so much for that. Would you say, do you have any potential pitfalls that the villages should look out for if they are sharing staff between villages or collaborating on programs between villages?
Yes. So we did have some issues arise with staff sharing. One of the issues was, the person that we hired really cared about villages. And as all of you know, there's more work to do than there are hours in the day. So this person was working more than the allotted hours and more so on one village's side than the other. So that created some issues. Part of that, though, was actually working with that person to guard their own boundaries. So it's kind of a supervision thing, but yes, it can be more complicated to for someone to take supervision from two entities like that, and then for them to be able to self-manage, and then in order to help them do that.
Yeah, and do you think, did you have two boards that the staff is reporting to, or is there some shared entity that then the staff person is reporting to?
So the staff person was brought in as an independent consultant and had a contract with each organization. So was supervised by the executive director in each organization. With Friendship Heights Neighbors Network, some of the supervision did come from the board because they didn't always have an executive director. So that staff resource was their primary staff resource. So I would say that was an issue. A little bit with the grant funding became an issue and it actually became an issue when I had to go off the board. So I wasn't there as and we also had an executive director change. And so the history of the relationship wasn't as well known by the new executive director and the new board members. And so there was a little wounding and bruising that had to be rectified, but everybody's all friendly again. So, you do have things crop up like that, particularly around staffing and around funding. I think everything else, it's much easier to collaborate on because because we want to be hyper-local, we're not really competing with each other for members or volunteers per se. And so it's very easy to then say, you know, we want to make this a safe and healthy and thriving program for everybody. So why should we all reinvent the wheel? Let's share, you know, all of our best knowledge from whoever has it. Let's take that and use it in the other place and not have to build it again.
Well, it sounds like good communication is essential, and it's like merging families or anything else, you know, if you go into it knowing that there are going to be hiccups and maybe really big, bigger than just a hiccup, you know, and you just grit your teeth, you say, we are going to work through this, but communication these are real issues. I just want to mention one other interesting type of collaboration, which is I started a small village in Bethesda near the YMCA, and we were all social because we knew that we had no service requests, and we needed to bond. We needed to develop a community. Right across Old Georgetown Road was a village that jumped in with all 100 feet right into, oh, we're going to deliver services. And they trained up 100 volunteers, and they had no request for services. Well, anyway, I started talking to the man across, you know, to the executive director and we were both also all volunteer, no fee, open to the neighborhood. So we had a lot in common. Well, to jump to the end point, we ended up merging. I mean, we are literally one village now. Yeah, and there weren't really any hiccups in that space because it was obvious to both of us that that was the right thing to do. Now, the hub and spokes is a model where you can integrate more loosely across a much wider geographic area. For some of you who don't know, the whole state of Colorado has about 8 spokes on one hub. So there are different models of that, but I'll stop there. So thank you so much, Margie. Thanks for sharing that. And maybe you'll put your contact information in the chat for folks.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. Okay. So next we're going to talk about a village collaborating with a nonprofit. And we have 2 speakers there, and I don't know who's going first, so I'll just introduce them alphabetically. Crystal Beatty was the founder of what's called the Maryland Umbrella Group, and she's had over 30 years of diverse service in the aging space. And now, Crystal, you also work for the city of Greenbelt and its Greenbelt Cares program. So you bring that to it. I'm going to go ahead and introduce Layla, and then you can tell me who's actually going to speak first. So Layla, there you are up in my corner. So Layla is a founder, a co-founder, and the president of Cheverly Village. She's also on the WAVE board and a much appreciated member of our board. And so I don't know who initiated your partnership, but whoever of you is going first, right, take it away.
I think Layla's going to start. So hopefully you all can see my screen that has the logos and everything on it. Okay. All right. So I have to move you all around for one moment. And Layla, you can go ahead and get started.
Okay. Thank you for being here this afternoon. I know there are many other things that we could do with our time, but I'll tell you, being here and the opportunity to hear from each other about unique partnerships, how you can do more, how as villages we don't fall into the trap of trying to do everything internally in and of ourselves. And I am a type A individual who always thinks that I have to do it all. And it's been thanks to relationships, as probably many of you have experienced, that I am coming to terms with both that I can't do it all, and it's actually much more beautiful when you're able to work across different relationships. Crystal and I don't even know, trying to think about how we met and when we met, but in the realm of villages, we first began our relationship when we were beginning as a village with Aging in Place Prince George's, an organization that, or a movement basically that Crystal stepped into the space and said there was a need. Let's bring people together who want to start villages. And we were the second village it depends upon if you count Greenbelt Cares. We were the second or third village within Prince George's County, Maryland. And so far, there are only 5 villages in operation in our county. So we have yet to attain the scope of villages that's throughout much of the rest of the Metro DC area. One of the things that we have been able to do because of a partnership with the Maryland Umbrella Group is to bring in programs that both serve our members and in ways that make it so that our village doesn't have to be handling all of the logistics, anywhere from programs to grant applications. And that's a little bit of what we'll go into here. And Crystal, I invite you to interrupt and interject at any time for us to go back and forth.
Sure.
So one of the things that we first began beyond Aging in Place Prince George's was the idea of how we could bring a stronger memory program, which many of you have heard of, to our community. We didn't have people who were already trained. We didn't know if we had the bandwidth for that, but we really wanted this program. And we had spoken with and worked with Crystal and others who are part of MUG and talked about, wait, can we go in together in a grant opportunity where MUG works with us and another area village to bring forward these programs that serve older adults in our community? And how can we benefit from this? And we had a shared vision and a shared idea of also how to subsidize and support memberships in our village so that anyone and everyone can access the services of a village. And that worked beautifully for us. And it's led to an ongoing relationship. We're going to go into Stronger Memory Program again, thanks to Catherine Farzan, and to make those programs work. We also, go ahead, Crystal.
Okay, I want to just throw a few things in there. Layla is speaking so eloquently about our partnership, but I did want to tell you a little bit about the Maryland Umbrella Group. We're a 16-year-old nonprofit. I'm one of the founding members that's still with the organization. And as you see by our umbrella, our group of umbrellas there, senior services is front and center, number 1. As Mary Jo mentioned in my introduction, I've been in aging services, the continuum of care here in the DC metro area for 30 plus years. I've truly aged in place in this industry, and villages is just one piece. I think that it's paramount, the idea of whether you're nonprofit, for-profit, government, private sector, the idea of doing this together makes us all stronger. And whether it's nonprofit partnerships or governmental grants or foundation grants, I think the idea of establishing these relationships is paramount to all villages moving forward into, the next decade in your continuity plan. Diversity of funding streams is paramount. I come from a foundation grant writing background, so that helped me as well. So I think that assembling a team through the Maryland Umbrella Group, we were able, in many instances, to fill some of the gaps that the villages were unable to fill based on financial constraints, limited paid staff or limited staff capacity in some instances. Convening the group, the working group, was very interesting here in the city of Greenbelt. I had that hat on also simultaneously. When we began this project, it was because there were so many organizations that, or even municipalities, that were looking to provide senior services. And she mentioned GIVES, Greenbelt Intergenerational Volunteer Exchange Service. They're one of the oldest villages in the United States, and they began here in the city of Greenbelt. It's also called, most people may know it by the name of GIVES, almost 30 years old. And with that particular program and with our Aging in Place program in the city, the Maryland Umbrella Group and the city of Greenbelt were looking to help communities embrace aging residents in developing programs such as villages. So with villages or with Aging in Place consulting, the Maryland Umbrella Group has been able to work with a variety of organizations. But as Layla mentioned today, front and center, villages is our priority at this moment. We're currently funded by a grant by the Maryland Department of Aging. We've developed a program and a website presence called Prince George's County Villages Connection. And we actually have 4 forums that are taking place this month for interested parties interested in forming villages. We have approximately 150 people registered from around the county that are interested in establishing villages. And we're really excited that we are able to meet them in their communities. We've also had requests to have a 5th event, and that event is going to be virtual to accommodate and meet the needs of people that weren't available during the times that we had scheduled the other 4 events around the county.
And
So there's,
Crystal,
go ahead.
I think it's important for people on this Zoom to realize this didn't happen overnight. We've talked about this for years.
Yes.
We've done little steps along the way with no funding, no support, but just because we really wanted to see it happen. And the opportunity to have a grant funding from Chelsea, from Maryland Department of Aging, to take this first step, it's exciting. It's a little bit scary, but it's exciting because we know that there are so many communities throughout our county that really want to see a way forward to be able to age well in their communities. Not, all of these things that we've wanted, we're on that. So don't be discouraged if it hasn't happened already. The idea of not needing to own things close, but being free to share across different entities about how you can come together to make things like this happen. Sorry for the interruption, Crystal, but I didn't want people to think that it had to happen overnight.
And I think in some instances, our role as the Maryland Umbrella Group is to herd the cats. And what I mean by that is we have many strong, like Layla said, A personality types that are leading villages in many instances, and we bring them together for the common good of the county. And I think the idea of working with the villages in Prince George's County are very interesting in that they have different types of, so we have traditional 501c3s, we have municipal villages, and we have villages that have close partnerships with their municipality. So even though there's only 5, they're all very diverse, meeting the needs of the residents that they serve. We also have different models here in Prince George's County. So the idea of free villages, low price villages, and villages that are I guess, on the scale of things more in the moderate range. So we have a little bit of everything, even though we only have 5 villages. So sometimes it's an interesting dialogue between them because they're different. And as they say, if you've seen one village, you've seen one village. And that's even true when there's only 5 villages.
Yes.
So I think the idea of villages looking outside of their own space to bring in partners, whether it's for grant writing purposes or for gap filling services. So for example, we do care management services as well, and working with some of the more complex cases that residents within a village may be going through, and helping the village to determine what is appropriate for them to provide services under their umbrella of services, or whether it's not more important to incorporate outside entities to make things happen. So that's just an example of one of the things that we partner with villages on as well. So there's lots of different opportunities out there. I encourage you to realize and investigate the nonprofits in your community, because I really think that they potentially could open up a wide array of services to your villages, and to take some of the stress off leadership and help fill some of the gaps, and potentially even bring in additional funding opportunities for you as well.
And one other thing to add, Crystal, is we all know that in the grant world, collaboration is the name of the game.
Yes.
So you're much more, as many of us know, we're much more likely to be successful when we approach things in that way. And we've really enjoyed, and Hyattsville Aging in Place is part of this work, University Park, we have College Park, that are coming together to do this effort. to accomplish this effort together by coming together in the formation of the Prince George's Village Connection. And we're happy to see where it leads. And our first session for that will be Thursday, Crystal.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, here we are. So,
Oh, well, thank you so much. Now, I hope that you will tell all of your attendees about WAVE and about our subsidies for membership to go places and of all of our programs. And I will say, Crystal, I'm sure that a lot of people on the phone and maybe even across the country, if they were listening, would be very envious of the fact that you are providing care management support. That is such a critical issue for so many villages. Their missions and their human resources just don't equip them to take care of people as they approach the frailer stage of life.
Yes.
At any age, you know. And so having a resource that is skilled and experienced and able to do that is very helpful. I know the DC villages benefit from that kind of help, but it's something that would be interesting to see how we could scale in other areas. Good.
Thank you.
Any questions for Crystal or Layla? Well, excellent. Thank you so much. I've learned a lot there. Okay, well, we have our last panel is going to be squarely around AAAs. And now this is a test. What does AAA stand for? Area Agencies on Aging. So there was our next two speakers are going to be talking both about a specific collaboration or collaborations, but also you'll be hearing about a report that the National V2V Network did about AAAs. And so again, I don't know in which order they're going to speak, so I'll introduce them both. We have Mary Jane Atwater, who is a co-founder of LowLink, which stands for Lake of the Woods, Living Independently in Our Community. And she also had extensive background in communications, which can be, you know, a great asset as you're building a village or any other effort. Carol Paquette is one of the founders of Arlington Neighborhood Village, and she's a recent former president of the National Village to Village Network Board. And she is now leading the effort in Virginia to help bring them a common voice to hope that maybe Virginia will copy some of the good policy leads that Chelsea and her agency are doing and the MDOA are doing. So again, Mary Jane and Carol, take it away.
I think Carol's going to speak first here. There we go. Carol, are you there? Is she still on mute?
Sorry, forgot to unmute myself.
Oh, there you go.
Okay. Well, as Mary Jo mentioned, the information that Mary Jane and I are going to share with you today is based on a study that we worked on for the Village to Village Network. So let's just jump in. And next slide. So villages and AAAs are really natural partners for a lot of reasons. We really share the same goal of enabling older adults to age in place by providing information and services to help them maintain their independence and their agency. We serve the same target population when we're talking about older adults. AAAs serve a much broader population group than that, but they are the agency, as we've learned today, that implements the Federal Older Americans Act programs at the state and local level. We have very complementary services and programs. To AAAs focus on the greatest economic need and the greatest social need. And of course, we in villages, we serve everyone that comes to us. And we're both experienced collaborators. We partner with many of the same organizations at the local level. And we have the next slide, please. I just want to touch very quickly on the research project to give you an idea of what we did and why it might be of interest to you. So this study, we had large and small villages and AAAs. We had different business models of villages and AAAs. It was a nationwide survey, or study, so we had urban, suburban, and rural communities that participated. We had a lot of variety in the types of collaborations and how they got started. And we think that there are a lot of good ideas that came out of this research that others can replicate, and many that match up with the Maryland RFPs that have been talked about today. So next slide, please. So we heard from the AAAs in this study why they like to collaborate with villages. And they just find villages to be a very cost-effective model to support their programs, to help them reach more older adults, and to connect with hard-to-reach populations. Several AAAs commented that when we were all trying to cope with COVID, they really appreciated the fact that villages could pivot very quickly and realign their programs and services. And I think we all know how much hard work the villages did during COVID to help our older adults get the vaccinations that they needed and protective equipment and all of that. Next slide, please. Similarly, villages found it very beneficial to collaborate with AAAs. So some of them said, collaborating with your AAA is a little like getting a good housekeeping seal of approval. It sort of gives you credibility in the local community, and particularly with funders, and much more recognition of the value of villages, and much more visibility in the community. So many of these collaborations did not involve funding. They were collaborations of many different types, but even when there is not funding involved, there's a lot of benefits both ways for villages and AAAs to work together. Next slide, please. We categorized the collaborations that we found into 4 groups, just to make it a little bit easier to talk about them. So village startup is pretty much as the name implies. It's where the AAA advised, shared resources, helped plan, or in some cases provided funding to start a village. Specific example of that we have locally is the DC Department, I never remember what DACL stands for, Community Living.
Aging.
They provided funding for the startup of the Kingdom Care Senior Village. Their the DC Department of Aging rationale was that, as I'm sure all of you know, there are lots of villages in DC, but there are 2 wards, particularly in the low-income areas of the city, that did not have village services. And they wanted to extend the village model more broadly, and so they issued an RFP that resulted in the start of this particular village. In the program support area, that's a little more of a generic title. That basically means things like making referrals between, and this is more of a 2-way street between both the village and the AAA, cross-promoting their programs and services, maybe co-hosting events and programs, sharing resources, and in some cases, service reimbursement. And we have an example in Maryland, Golden Age Village. They had a community that was interested in having congregate meals. And so they contracted with the Baltimore County Department of Aging to provide congregate meals. And you see that in the, I guess, diagonally in capacity building, by providing the congregate meals to a Muslim community, it enabled BCDA to reach an underserved population that otherwise they would have had difficulty reaching. On the flip side of that, BCDA provided training to the Golden Age Village volunteers in terms of nutrition and program planning and reimbursement for their meal providing services. Now, this collaboration started several years ago, and it still exists and has been expanded into other areas where BCDA has provided other support to the Golden Age Village so they can continue to serve their community in more diverse ways. Planning and coordination. This is where village members, village volunteers, board members participate in boards and committees and planning activities of AAAs, and vice versa, where employees, members of the AAA will be on village boards and help in the planning and have joint programs that they work on together. And the example that we have is Mary Jane's Village, of Lowlink, and a village near them in rural Virginia called Rapid Home, where both of those villages are very much engaged with their local AAA and other community partners in strategic planning for serving the aging population in their particular location. I would say just another word about capacity building, just to explain a little bit more about what that means. It's really enhancing the capacity for better program management, to reach underserved populations, and training. And again, this is a two-way street where sometimes villages do this for AAAs and sometimes AAAs provide this support for villages. I'm going to turn it over now to Mary Jane to talk a little bit about, so what can you do as a village to start a collaboration with your AAA?
Right. So I'm going to basically do the how-tos here, and this is based on our research, but also I think many of these tips are going to be things that you probably know about, maybe are hopefully starting to do also. So if you want to start a collaboration, certainly with your AAA, it's important to get to know them. And you want to find out, where does your AAA fit into the whole aging services network? So it's important to, first of all, I would read the state and local plans on aging, start there, get to know what the priorities are in your state, and then read the AAA strategic plan. What is their budget? What are their priorities? What kind of programs and services do they offer? As you do this, you want to keep in mind what your village is offering, because you're looking for areas where you can fill gaps. And as Carol said, it's important, if your AAA, for example, has an advisory group, think about a way that someone from your village can serve on that advisory group. In our case, with Lowlink, our AAA was having some difficulty with transportation at the eastern end of Orange County, a large county in Virginia. And we went to them early on when we were forming our village and said, we'd really like to help you with the transportation. Is there a way we can work together? They then provided us with a wheelchair accessible van that we used to take our members as well as community members to medical and legal appointments. And so that relationship has started there and has expanded over the past 8 years or so. Next, advocacy is important. We villagers like to tell our stories, but you need to build broad awareness, certainly, of your village. Getting to know local officials who have oversight of affairs for seniors, for older adults, is important. You want to meet with them, share information about your village, get to know them. We talk here about identifying a champion. In our case, early on, we went to our county supervisors to tell them what our plans were, what our village was going to do. And they became quite interested. One particular county supervisor was very interested, and he in turn connected us with resources for funding during COVID, very important. And he also connected us with people in Richmond who have been important in our own advocacy. So, those kind of champions can be really useful. You want to publicize your village in the local media as well. And engagement, we've heard a lot about the relationship in the previous presentation, which I thought, everybody, it makes everybody stronger. I think, Layla, you may have said that. And I think that's so true. It's more than a business, this collaboration. It's more than a business transaction. So volunteering for a AAA working group or committee is important, and you might want to invite the staff to lead programs, attend events in your village. We did that. We had a program on Medicare that we invited our AAA representative to come speak about that. We opened it to the entire community. That was a way that they were able to learn that the AAA was more than that automobile association, you know, that everybody thought when they heard AAA. So meeting with the executive director of your AAA is important, inviting them to programs. We had our executive director come and do a whole program on the services of the AAA, and it was very successful. And cultivation, start small. You know, I think that's important to realize. In our study, we found that some of the villages, or few of the villages, instantaneously developed a relationship. There was one in upstate New York, and we said, how long did it take? And they said it took 15 minutes. We just met and clicked, and we had a collaboration. But then there are other villages that take years, particularly if it's a complex relationship that involves financial reimbursement. A little help in Colorado told us it took 8 years of a lot of back and forth during the development of that relationship. So if you start small, you know, you have an idea what kind of collaboration you want, both now and in the future, and work toward that. And just start small with co-hosting, cross-referrals, serving on committees, and just building the collaboration as needs arise. Now, these are just some key takeaways to what makes a collaboration successful. And I think this holds true for any relationship that you have with any organization. Communication being key here, and clear, frequent, open communication. You know, share your strategic plan, share your annual report with your AAA, let them know what you're up to. And so address any issues that arise immediately when you have a collaboration. In terms of partnership, you know, both partners have to benefit at some level. So you need to keep an eye on that and demonstrate that you are certainly, that the village is a trusted partner. You want to make sure that you're not duplicating services. So that's an important thing. So as the relationship evolves, just make sure that there is no duplication, that you're all filling gaps. Be proactive and in looking for process improvements. I think that's important too. And stay current on the community needs. We all know that community needs change over time. The AAA priorities can change over time. So it's important to keep that in mind. In terms of results, of course, you want to help achieve your own goals, but also achieving the AAA's goals. And you do that through delivering high quality programs and services. I would suggest being a connection for those unaware of AAA services. And so, you know, inviting the AAA into your community is one way to make people aware of what those services are. Complying with reporting requirements is important, and that kind of gets into evaluation and reporting. If you have a complex or complicated financial relationship, the reporting requirements are going to be different than if you have a fairly simple relationship. You know, in our relationship, I have to provide data on the transportation, the miles, you know, all of the services that we do that involve the van, and now we have a little minibus. And so the reporting requirements have become a little more complicated. And you, of course, want to suggest improvements as time goes on. One of the things that we liked when we talked with, I think it was a village in California, was they said that their AAA viewed them as an innovation sandbox. We like that term because villages can really innovate in ways that many larger organizations can't. And so take advantage of that. You know, you can adapt to new opportunities and challenges, creating programs to meet unmet needs. Mm-hmm. And let's see, the last slide here. you know, as we talk about the benefits for villages and the benefits for the AAA, it's really the older adults who benefit from the collaboration, and we need to keep that in mind. You know, there's more confidence of the ability to age in the home for many participants. Alleviating social isolation, which we all know is really key. The collaboration enables that to happen, to alleviate it, not for social isolation to happen, but to alleviate it. And, you know, increased availability of services and when needed. And of course, expanding outreach to underserved populations is another benefit of the collaboration that benefits older adults in the long run. So that's the conclusion. And we wanted to give you a QR code here that you can just use your phone, and it will take you right to this Leveraging Resources handbook. And, you know, we urge you to take a look at that. It has some interesting case studies that I think will give you some more information that we've only touched on today. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much, and I can vouch for how important that book is. It's extremely readable, it's extremely well presented, and has an awful lot of insights. Let's take down
I'm
this.
gonna go, just hold on. I'm gonna go ahead and try and get a link to that actually in the chat for those
Okay,
that don't use the QR code. So you
Okay.
can- There.
Perfect.
okay. Are you ready for it? Okay, well, while she's doing that, I'm going to ask people, our wonderful speakers have taken us to 20 minutes after 2, and we're scheduled to end at 2:30. I was going to be very democratic about this. Would you all still like to go into these 2 breakout sessions that we had planned? One would be for those of you who want to specifically talk about village to village collaboration and village nonprofit collaboration. That would be one breakout group for just more intense give and take and questions and answers. And then the other one would be specifically with Mary Jane and Carol, you know, to talk further about AAAs only. Can we see a show of hands if we can? How many would like to stay in one meeting and just have combined general Q&A? 1. Well, it's hard to count that. Let me count 1, 2, 3, 4. How many would really like quickly, even if it's short, to go into these breakout groups and have more focused discussions? Well, I think a lot of people are just non-voting, but it does seem to me, that the first group is prevailing, and that we'll all just stay on here and have some extended discussion. I really do hope that you'll ask some of these you know, questions of all of these speakers now, because we've certainly heard a lot. So and in fact, maybe I'm gonna jump in. Aram, I'm gonna flag you, Aram, because you are doing so much and you have done so much in different ways. So Aram,
Mary Jo, can I interrupt you for 1 second? I'm sorry again. So there's 2 links in the chat, so everybody hover over the chat. One of them is for before you leave at the end of this, make sure to click on that link so that on your computer will open a post-program survey. You can fill out later on your own time, but just make sure that you go ahead and click on that. And then I also put in the VTV handbook link.
okay, now where is our, okay, there we go. Yes, please, please, please do click on that link for feedback. That will help us a lot to help you in the future. So Aram, you created the Golden Age Village, as I recall, and you are now leading the Baltimore County's efforts around villages. And I would love for your take on anything that you've heard or your experience when you were a startup. Share some of your own experiences.
Yeah, I think so there was the foundation already with the Golden Age Village, so which the partnership with the AAA had started before I even got on the committee. Again, when I first spoke, because I was working with the State Department of Aging, I knew about the village model. I just didn't know, like, how does it actually work, and like the entire process of setting it up. So the first thing when I met with the committee at the local, this is in my neighborhood basically. So I was like, what is it that you guys want to do except for just having a congregate meal site? And the first thing they said is we need there are needs of these individuals. We just don't know how to address them, because when they started, a lot of the folks that were on the committee were pioneers of the Islamic Society of Baltimore, and now they were getting older and they didn't know how to work, how to address the needs of older adults that come from a different diverse background. So this was their first attempt, the congregate meal site was their first attempt to getting these folks together. And now that they were seeing the needs, people aren't driving to the mosque. They're not driving, people are getting sick, and they didn't know how to reach to those individuals. So the village was just the right thing that they needed at that time, which is started about over 10 years ago. And over the years, we've just expanded and have now served over 300 volunteers. 300 older adults, and there are over 20 volunteers, and there is no membership fee, which is pretty amazing, considering that the need has been recognized by the state. The Department of Aging has provided a number of grants to support their operations. And I think one of the things that has really worked well is that when they started initially, we didn't really know what we were actually going to do, how this would look, 5 years, 10 years from the time we started. But what we had started and the foundation, when we started looking for the grant applications, opportunities, we realized all the things that we had was meeting the requirements of the grant opportunities at the State Department of Aging. And now it was time for us to tell the story. And so glad that, we were able to get the funds from the Department of Aging to continue the operation and expand. So I think initially, a lot of times it may feel like you're walking in the dark and there may not be light, but just keep walking, there will be light eventually, and it's just going to bloom.
Thank you so much. Now, I happen to know of a couple of folks who are on the call. Oh, I'm sorry, Patricia, were you raising your hand to talk? Well, I also wanted to put the finger on a couple of people who I know are with, startup villages, and ask them for their feedback to this in terms of, are you taking away anything from this, or what are your needs? And Arkia, I'm going to you, and Rhonda, I can't find you. I hope you're still on somewhere. I hope that if you are, that you'll speak a little bit about, there you are. What are your needs? How do you view this collaboration business, and what would help you?
I think hi everyone, this is Arkia Wade, and I'm in the Turner Station community focused with Neighborhood Companions. And I think what resonated for me in this conversation was collaborations, because this is, for me, this is not the Arkia show. I didn't really, like Imran said, I didn't even know I was a village, really. I had been doing things with our older adults, just kind of ad hoc. And so actually bringing an organized something together has been, over the last, I guess now 8 months or so, has been great. And the support from the Baltimore County Department of Aging, as well as the State of Maryland Department of Aging, has been great to help me, get this thing really off the ground. But really, relationships. I can't express how important that is, to know your community, to know what they need, to know the residents, to have key people around you to help you really form the relationship. Because I think for Black and Brown people, a village is a little different than in another area. We have different needs. And so really focusing on those has, been great as I'm starting out. So thank you for this conversation.
Rhonda?
Thank you so much for the opportunity, not just to hear from the variety of persons you had on the panels, but to share a little bit about our story in Moco Mid-County. We truly were as grassroots as you get. It was seeing a need first with my parents, and then with several other members in our community. Understanding the resources existed took a long time for us. What instead we saw was a need, that was greater than we could handle individually. And so the idea of collectively working together made sense. But I could tell you that it feels overwhelming and had felt overwhelming. And so a few weeks ago, I had to reach out and admit that. It's been great working in Montgomery County with Pizit and the Department of Aging locally, but meeting other stakeholders, that helps so much. Others who are working with communities like ours that are less likely to have retirees that can immediately step into critical roles, like, a retired attorney or accountant. Finding ways to meet the needs in all villages, I feel so much more hopeful today than I did, say, a month ago. Filling the need has felt was what we set out to do. However we could accomplish it, self-funding and finding resources from spaces like Village Support Network. But knowing that the others out there addressing some of these same needs in communities like ours has helped tremendously. I met Arkia a few weeks ago, who immediately shared her insight, her history, and the resources she had developed over time. So I look forward to more of these conversations and learning even more as our small village continues to grow. So thank you, Mary Jo and Wave, so much, and to everyone on the panels today.
Okay, Pazit, you just put an item in the chat about a May 9th session on outreach in different communities, and she's going to put the link to share the info and link via email soon, and I can share that with you. Good. Okay, quickly, we still have a little bit of time. How about others on the call who, Pazit, did you want to jump in and say something? No?
I think we are at the end of the session, and I think we should respect everybody's time. Just want to appreciate this incredible session and the wonderful speakers. It is really about the collaboration, and no one can do this work alone. And just one observation, I think that, being in this space for a long time, like Crystal and like Aram, like Layla, we have seen the growth from villages mainly focusing on their own startup survival growth, and then kind of blossoming and expanding their horizon. Seeing like this is not just about my community, this is about everybody's community. And that is, to me, just miraculous and wonderful. And I think the growth and the strength of the village comes from that perspective. So kudos to everybody for supporting this work. And so I can put the link to the Zoom link to the May 9th meeting, but I think it would be better if we just sent an email through Mary Jo, and I'll promote that in other network, because Rhonda is basically looking to you all at a very laser focused session on what worked for you for outreach. It's like this really hyper intense, hands-on, specific detail on what was successful. And so she's going to write this out. She's spectacular. She's so much fun to work with, regardless of anything else. I encourage you all to participate if you have something to share or to learn. And that's it.
Thank you. Okay, someone else. You all have interesting stories, I know. Oh, okay, Judith, is your hand up?
Judith's using the clapping signal, so
That was that was a clapping
very-
signal. I just wanted to say, I think this was really useful and very helpful for those of us who are trying to get their heads around the things that we can do to reach out within our own village and to others. This has been great. Thank you.
Yes, Jim.
I'm focused on what's the secret sauce, and I think it's trust. It's that the thing that villages can do that no other part of the senior network can do is create relationships that are ongoing, personal, and facilitate trust. Because what we know about isolation and loneliness, what we know about healthcare, is that the most trusted people for all of that are people you know, care about, and trust. So what does that say? That says we're not a AAA. MAP is a wonderful thing. MAP, as you may know, is one of the major tenets of AAAs, where there's information referral. What we can do that the AAA and MAP can't do is we can have an ongoing relationship, and we can do kind of a mini case management where we care about the person and see them tomorrow and the day after. So I'm calling out why we're special. We're special because we're able to create trust and compassion in a more in-depth way than other parts of the senior network.
Thank you, Jim. You can see Jim is a new addition to the WAVE board, and you can see why we appreciate him. Okay, anyone else have anything to share or add? Okay, well, I will be sending you links to these various resources. And I do want to end by saying my personal thanks always to Pazit, who has mentored most of us in Montgomery County and even nationally. So we all thank you, Pazit. And I want to thank Chelsea for the passion that she brought to this. I don't know how long you've been at MDOA, but boy, the light is sure shining brighter now. So we really appreciate that. I always quote Garrison Keillor now when I sign off. Be well, do good work, and stay in touch. So thank you all.
Thank you, Mary Jo. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.